Hello guitar teachers and students, welcome back. So today we're wrapping up the first chapter in our classical improvisation series, and we're taking a look at chords other than the 1 and the 5, which if you've been following along with the series, I'm sure you're very ready for. So let's get into it. So there are a lot of reasons why one may choose one chord over another, right? Maybe you like the color that it has, maybe there's some really cool voice leading going on, maybe you just feel like this chord needs to happen here, and I absolutely encourage you to follow your heart on all of that. For us, the one reason why we absolutely need another chord right now is because we have a note in the scale that we haven't been able to harmonize yet. So getting into that, let's say we're in the key of G. So the first note in the scale, we have this G, and we can harmonize it with the 1 chord, just the G. And then after that we'll have an A, and we can harmonize that with our 5/7. And then after that we have a B, and we can harmonize that with our 1 chord, again the G. And then the C we can harmonize with our 5/7. And then the D we can harmonize with actually either chord, so it could be the 1, could be the 5. And then after that we have the E, which doesn't fit into a G chord or a D7 chord. So we have nothing currently to harmonize that with. And then of course after that we have the F sharp, which we can harmonize with the 5/7 chord. So we got to take care of that E, right? And we know from back in part 1 that in order to harmonize the E, we need a chord that has an E in it. So what chords in this key have an E in them? Well, first of all, we have an A minor. We also have a C. And then lastly, we have an E minor. So which one we choose? I mean, with a lot of this composition improvisation stuff, it's not so much that there's one right answer. It's that, different scenarios may make us choose one over the other for different reasons. So there's a myriad, a plethora of different scenarios that may, inform our decision one way or the other. But let's go ahead and take a look at some simple ones with these 3 chords and kind of take a look at why we may choose one over the other. So the A minor is kind of a classic minor precursor to the 5 chord. So we could play something like... There are of course other scenarios where we could use it, but at the most basic level, if you're really feeling a transition to a minor chord before we go back to those really bright major sounds, the 2 chord in whatever major key you're in is an excellent choice. Our next option is going to be C major, which is our 4 chord, and I'm sure if you've been around music for any amount of time, you've heard the phrase 1-4-5 about 6,000 times. At the most basic level, this is just sort of the major version of what we did with the 2 chord, right? So it's a really good precursor to 5, where you may want to stay with your bright major sounds. So we could play something like... You'll hear that it sounds very comfortable, very logical, very familiar sound. Which brings us to our last option, which is our E minor, the 6 chord. You can use it as a precursor to the 5 and play something like... So it doesn't sound bad, right? But it's definitely a far less common sound than the other 2. So the real strength of it is that it's an excellent chord to change keys to, which kind of puts me in a weird spot as a teacher, right? Because part of me really wants to go out in left field and just explore all of that, but we really need to stay within the confines of what we've established so far. So one way that we can use some of that sauce with kind of the constructs that we have so far is sort of as a fake out after the 5 chord. Let me show you what I mean. So that's kind of fun, right? We set ourselves up with a situation where we're expecting to hear the 1 chord next, but we have what's called a deceptive cadence, and we go to the 6 chord instead. I really like that. That's a really fun sound. So for worksheets this week, I think a lot of the real value for you guys is going to come from the ones where there's just space to play around. Composition and improvisation are kind of best friends like that. When we're improvising, we're sort of composing on the fly. So the more comfortable you are with little compositions that meet basic criteria, the more comfortable you're going to be with making stuff up that meet that basic criteria. As a precursor to that, I do have a few that have some basic melodies and some basic keys, and it's your job to kind of go through and figure out which chords lead to the best harmony for those melodies. Again, at this point, we're kind of stepping away from the whole idea of correct answers and instead providing possible solutions that you may or may not like for one reason or another. And I think those worksheets will definitely start to get you to make some of those choices. And as a bonus, if you want just these worksheets, of course, there's a link for those, but there's also a link for a bundle with all 4 sets of worksheets for half price. Links for both of those are going to be down in the description. So as expected, this hasn't been the most popular thing that I've done on YouTube so far, but that's okay. In part 1, I mentioned that at one point in time, I went out in search of this information and found next to nothing. So just the idea that there's, even a handful of people out there that will at some point go out in search of this information and find this and hopefully find value in that. That's enough for me to keep doing it. So if you're one of those people, thank you so much for even existing, That being said, every like, comment, subscription is of course very encouraging for me. So if you are one of those handful of people and you're finding value in this, and you want to show appreciation, those are excellent free ways to do it. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back next week for something completely different, and we will revisit this in the future. So if you're here and you're getting everything and you want more, fear not, it's on the way. All right, take care.